Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and a couple months back I did a video on closed versus open roleplay concerning in and out of character knowledge and character secrets in tabletop role-playing games. However, one area that I briefly touched on, more of a blink and you'll miss it mention, was personal agendas. When a character has some sort of personal or individual quest that does not involve the rest of the party. And it quickly became clear that I did not go into this enough. Between various comments on that video and some posts that I found that were referencing that video in gaming forums, it is obvious that I should have elaborated on personal quests, what separates them from character secrets, and why more tables should be using them, because they are a fantastic role-playing tool that can solve a lot of common problems that you have at your table. So what are personal quests? Essentially, these are mini side quests, tasks that the individual player character performs without the help or possibly even the knowledge of all the other player characters. Now, these aren't big adventure plots that the whole group is doing, but something that the character is performing during whatever the larger adventure is that the whole group is doing. Now, maybe they're related to the character's backstory, or maybe they're just simply an unrelated side job. Either way, they're mini missions that are tailored for the individual player characters as something that elicits an action from them. Some RPGs have these built in mechanically. Alien and Cult Divinity Lost offer their own versions, but character quests don't need to be something that's mechanically built into the game. So it doesn't matter if you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, Traveler, Cyberpunk Red, Call of Cthulhu, or whatever else, the same general concepts apply here. Now, I'm going to touch on a couple of concepts that I've covered before in previous videos in order to highlight some of the common problems that groups might have in order to show how personal quests can fix these problems. First, and most recently covered in my closed versus open role-playing video, I am not a fan of out-of-character secrets, or at least secrets that last more than 1 or 2 sessions before the rest of the players around the table find out about them, even if the characters do not. Very often we imagine this being some sort of amazing reveal where everyone around the table is shocked, but most often, these out-of-character secrets cause confusion, or they never ever come out, or they just simply get forgotten, or if they do come out, they just kind of end up being disappointing. With many backstory secrets, such as the player character has some vice, or they're wanted for some crime, or they're secretly ignoble, the easiest way for the player to keep this secret from everybody else around the table is to never ever act on it. If they never say or do anything, then the other PCs and the players are never going to find out about their secret, which is boring as hell. There's no tension, and there is no reveal or reason that the player characters around the table or even the other players should suspect that there's even a secret at all. Now, the common sentiment whenever this topic comes up is that it's the game master's responsibility to act, to introduce active threats that might expose the secret that the player character is trying to hide. Which, yes, a game master should be incorporating backstories and all that stuff. However, it's also placing all of the burden and therefore all of the blame on the game master, who already has a lot of stuff on their plate. And as I said before in my Backstories 101 video, 95% of the responsibility of incorporating a character's backstory is the player's responsibility. And to illustrate, allow me to reuse that old skit because I think it perfectly captures this topic. After jumping back into the star system and passing through customs, your characters make it to the Starport's Cantina. Patrons from all over the system stand at the bar and sit at the various tables, murmuring in half a dozen alien languages. The bar itself stands in the middle, operated by a surly-looking man with a cybernetic arm. I guess I'll just go sit at a table. My character is a wanted man on 2 systems. This would have been a great time for him to bring in a bounty hunter or someone who knows who I really am. He totally dropped the ball on me. I guess I'll sit down with him. I can't believe Theft didn't give me a message about my thick sister once we arrived back in message range. The entire motivation for my character is getting money to cure her illness. It's a great backstory, and I wasted it on this character because he isn't using it. I'm gonna go to the bar and get us some space whiskey. I can't believe there's no Omicrons here. Seth should know how much my character hates them, and a bar fight would be a fun way to apply my backstory. Lazy-ass game master might as well not have a backstory if he ain't gonna use it. Okay, so now watch what happens when the players incorporate and take action on their own backstories. The bar itself stands in the middle, operated by a surly-looking man with a cybernetic arm. Okay, since my character is a wanted man, I want to be sure that I don't see any patches or insignias from any of those systems that are looking for me. Roll a recon. 9? You don't see any, but it's kinda hard to tell with the group on the far side. then I'm going to choose a table far away from them. And I want to see if I can position myself in a way that I can watch them through mirrors or reflections, because I am paranoid there could be bounty hunters. Once he sits down, I'm going to join him and immediately open up my data tablet to see if there's any missed messages or updates about my sick sister. No messages. Oh, well then I'm going to shoot a message to my mom to tell her that I got the money and I'm going to be sending it to her soon. There any Omicrons here? You don't see any. Good, because I go to a different bar if there were any. Well, this is the only bar in the space station. And it's a good thing there aren't, otherwise I'd have to kick their butts. I'm going to go get us some space whiskeys. Now, this second example was far more interesting because the players took action. Even if it's simply mentioning that they're on the lookout for some enemies out there, it also serves as a great reminder to the game master about these characters' motivations and their backstories and anything that's really going on inside the player character's life. That means that the game master is now far more likely to incorporate those elements into future adventures because the player is making it clear that this is something that really interests them, and it keeps the game master from forgetting that that was something that the player had mentioned, 7-8 months ago. And those player actions can also clue all of the other characters and the players in that there's some sort of character secret going on, because the players around the table can see this unusual behavior that each of the player characters is doing. And Personal Quest is how we get to do this a whole lot easier. So let's talk about how. But first, a word from our sponsor, Phoenix Fan Fusion. Coming to the Phoenix Convention Center June 5th through 7th, Fan Fusion is the largest fan convention in the Southwest, offering 3 days of wall-to-wall geekery, whether you like fantasy, sci-fi, comics, gaming, both tabletop and arcade games, tons of cosplay, friggin' wrestling. Yeah, they have wrestling events there every single day. There's featured guests, a dealer hall with lots of neat stuff, and much, much more. This thing is huge. In 2025, they had over 131,000 attendees over their 3 days, and 2026 is looking to be even bigger, bringing all sorts of expanded programming for all ages. And speaking of all ages, kids 12 or under can attend for free. Now, tickets went on sale already on January 9th, so you can go ahead and purchase your passes now. And while you're at it, you should probably go ahead and book any hotel for the event, because that's the part that I always seem to forget whenever I'm doing cons. And all of a sudden I put it off to the last minute, and all the close hotels are gone. So now I'm having to commute forever back and forth between the convention center and the hotel, and then I get a bunch of cool stuff, and I'm awkwardly carrying it all around, because I can't get back to my hotel room to drop it off, because my hotel room is like on the other side of town or 6 counties away or something. So learn from my mistakes and go ahead and book your hotel now ASAP. So click the link below to snag your tickets now for Phoenix Fan Fusion 2026. And now back to the video using Personal Quest for Backstories. Okay, so very often player character backstories include some sort of character life goal, some sort of larger motivation that might cause them to become an adventurer in the first place. Such as, so my character is secretly a prince, but everybody thinks that I died on the night that my family was assassinated. So my goal is to regain my title and my birthright as ruler of my homeland. Okay, yeah. That is a classic one. However, very often the player never ever acts on this backstory that they wrote for themselves, and it ends up getting pretty much forgotten until the character reaches the highest level and we're near the end of the campaign. So we might just kind of wrap the whole thing up with a duel and say how they regained the throne and lived happily ever after or something like that. It's kind of an epilogue to their whole life. So what you want to do is break this large-scale goal up into smaller parts. Maybe discovering who betrayed the king, finding witnesses to that night of the assassination, discovering some sort of proof of who was the betrayer, maybe spreading rumors how the true king is still alive, maybe discovering some weakness that this false king has, something that can be exploited in the future, or maybe eliminating a trusted lieutenant or weakening the relationship with their allies, weakening them down so that way when the player character strikes, all the pieces are already in place. So there are a lot of possible steps that this player character could be doing over the course of their entire life in order to regain the throne. So players and game masters should work together to flesh out bits of their backstory out a little bit more, all the details around it, and then break that up into bite-sized pieces. Now, some of those pieces you can go ahead and tell the player up front. So maybe one of the first things you could do is just kind of ask around and find out if anyone was there on the night of the coup, and that could tell you either how it was that they got through the walls, if maybe it's something that you could exploit yourself, or it would tell you if it's an inside job, and then maybe you could find out who it was that did the betrayal. Okay, got it. So now, the next time that the whole party is in a major city and they're gathering supplies and they're getting ready for their next adventure, that player can say, I'm going to go out and gather some rumors and information about the night that the royal family was killed. And that's it. That's all that they have to do. And then maybe, make some rolls, maybe a bit brief role play, and then once the game master feels that the player has completed whatever that personal quest is, they might give them whatever their next personal quest is, or maybe lay out a couple other ones that the player can choose from, such as one of the servants who was there that night is now living in another town, which also just so happens to be where the player characters are going to be headed. And, while they're there, that character can then duck away for a bit to question that NPC and hopefully complete the next step in whatever their larger agenda is for their life. So using personal quests now means that this character's big motivation and life goal is now something that they're actively and regularly working on. They're gaining information, they're building allies, they're misdirecting their enemies. It's all an active part of their life and not just some sort of backstory note that feels sort of tacked on and really risks being forgotten. Now, of course, most player character backstories are not going to have some big life goal that we can use that way, and that's perfectly fine if the player character doesn't have something like that. But for the characters that this does work for, breaking it up into mini quests is a fantastic way to incorporate it into that character's life, encouraging the player to take an active role in this backstory that they wrote for themselves. Another way we can use personal quests is with side jobs. These are little tasks that a player character can complete during the adventure, essentially an unrelated errand since the group has already headed that direction anyway. For games like Dungeons and Dragons, where spellcasters might be priests or, have different gods or have some sort of powerful eldritch patron that they serve, it can be pretty easy to work in a side quest at any given point. We'll make camp at the base of the mountain and then start up tomorrow to that cave, nice and refreshed. Dweebles, during the night, you're visited by your patron in your dreams, his form kind of hidden behind a wall of smoke or clouds shot through with green lightning. He says, tomorrow when you reach the northern slope, you are to take this gem and bury it on the western face where it will touch the light of the setting sun. And in your hand appears this egg-shaped diamond with like a red liquid core. But why, my lord? It is not your place to know, but only honor my commands. Tell no one of this. Let nobody see you bury it. This is vital. Do you understand? I understand. You awaken with a start, sweat dotting your forehead, and as you open your clenched fist, you find that egg-shaped diamond in your hand. Or it can just be a more conventional job that some NPC hires them for. Eddie the Shark flicks a finger above the data pad and says, here's half the money now to cover your expenses. The other half you'll get once you deliver the files to the client. Well, you got it, boss. That client list is as good as yours. Excellent. And he lifts his glass in a toast, signaling that the meeting is over. Okay, guys, let's figure out how we're going to do this. As you're heading to the door, he points at you, Mike, and says, hey, I need you to stick around for a minute. I got a few questions about that last job. Oh, alrighty then. Once the others are gone, he leans in and says, nah, it's nothing like that. I got a little favor that I need to ask you. Okay. One of those names on that client list is an associate of mine, and it'd be real inconvenient for him if it was to get out that he was associated with the Scarecrows. So once you and your crew steal that list, I need you to make a small little deletion for me. All right, but you don't want the others to know about this. My associate feels that the less people that know about this, the better, so I'm only telling you about it. But if you do it, and you keep it quiet that you did it, I'll pay you 500 extra eddies, and plus, I'll owe you a big favor. Well, that works for me. Consider it done. I knew I could count on you. It could be anything, delivering a message or some item, procuring or destroying something, or just finding out some information. Whatever it is you want to do, it's not related to whatever the big adventure is, so it could really be anything. The key is that it is small. It's a one-person job that can be carried out wherever it is that the rest of the party is already headed or is already going to be at. It's not something that the player needs to leave and go far away in order to complete it. No, This is something that they might have to tuck off for a couple minutes or an hour or two in game and then kind of head back and nobody even noticed that they were gone. This is just a little bitty side job. Okay, so now that we've covered what personal quests are, let's talk about some best practices for employing them. Little things to keep in mind whenever you're coming up with these. The single most important thing to remember with personal quests is that it is a call to action. The character needs to do something. Unlike a backstory secret where the character can simply do nothing and keep their secret safe, a personal quest demands action in order to complete it. Now, this can be a simple verb like protect, explore, research, conceal, join, study, train, obtain, etc., etc. Something that makes it clear that there is an order to complete this task. The player character has to act. And if this is something that they're keeping secret from the rest of the player characters, or even if they're keeping it secret from the rest of the players around the table, and this behavior of them, tucking off or doing different things or asking certain questions, that can rouse suspicion from either the PCs or the players. Interests them, tells them that something is going on, rouses their interest, and that way we can have a big reveal because it doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere once that reveal happens. The players are actively interested in whatever it is that other player is doing. The Alien role-playing games mechanic is called personal agendas, and it offers different ways that those can be employed for either one-shot cinematic games or extended campaign play. And every character has one, and the players who took action and they completed their personal agenda, they're going to be rewarded with an experience or a story point. Now, Cult Divinity Lost, every character has two what they call dramatic hooks, and acting on a dramatic hook is the major way to earn experience points or recover stability points in that game. Now, those games are designed around those mechanics, so all of the player characters in those games have personal quests. However, when you're playing a different game that doesn't have this sort of built-in mechanic, we don't need to give every character a personal quest in every single session. We can space this out a bit if you want. Maybe one character has one, or maybe two characters have one at a time. You don't need to feel that you have to overwhelm your game with everybody having one or everybody having two. So feel free to pace them out, spread them out, however works best for you and works best for your table. Next, while personal quests can be a lot of fun for that player, they should never ever be something that overshadows the rest of the table or detracts from everyone else's game. If you've got a 5-hour session and you're now dedicating 1 full hour to that one player who's having a personal quest, then that is a lot of time that everybody else is just sitting around the table and doing nothing. If the personal quest ends up being something that should be a one-on-one solo game, just you and the player, but just the two of you, then go ahead and schedule it as being a one-on-one game. Don't have to have the rest of the group there for it. So with personal quests, keep it simple and keep it moving. It is far safer to give them an undercomplicated personal quest than a complicated one, because you can always make it more complicated, but it is a whole lot more difficult if you give them something too complicated to suddenly tone that down. So players are also going to make something overcomplicated on their own. You don't need to help them out with this. Trust me, they will take a simple task and they will turn it into something that is just way more complicated than you could possibly imagine. So while personal quests are there to help shine a spotlight on an individual player character and personalize the game for that player, they should never ever outshine the overall group or detract from the other player's enjoyment. Next, failure or refusal is always an option. Characters should be able to fail the quest. In cases where an NPC is offering them a side job personal quest, they still have the right to refuse it, especially in cases where this is something that might end up screwing over the rest of the party. The individual quests might just simply change to, do they tell the rest of the party about them being approached with this offer that would have screwed them over? Or what blowback is that NPC going to give as a result of the player character either failing to complete the job or refusing to even accept the job in the first place because that NPC might have taken that personally. Sometimes these personal quests can be moral dilemmas. The underlying purpose is seeing if the player character accepts this side job or not, and how that character feels about that. With Cult Divinity Lost, with their dramatic hook mechanic, one interesting aspect is that the character's dramatic hook quests are determined by the other players around the table. However, the player gets to ultimately decide if they accept that hook or not. And if they do accept it and they don't complete that hook, then that player can ask to switch to a different one once they get to the next session. Now, I'm not saying that's how you should be doing it in your own game for whatever game it is that you're playing. I simply find the fact that the rest of the table comes up with whatever these are, kind of like they're a dare and the player gets to choose which one that they're going to do. I kind of find that to be a pretty interesting mechanic. Anyway, the other thing to consider is what rewards does the character receive for completing a personal quest. If the character has the right to turn down a personal quest or maybe fail a personal quest, then maybe the potential reward that they can get can encourage them to take that quest on and complete it. Now, this can be an in-character reward, such as the NPC is offering them money or some valuable information or the like, but game masters might also consider mechanical rewards as well. Now, this could be experience points or some bonus on some later role that they have in the future, or unlocking some ability that the player character will be able to do, or maybe removing some sort of penalty that the player character is suffering from, or maybe restoring a little bit of their humanity or a little bit of their sanity, something like that. Now, you might not even have to offer any sort of reward at all. I mean, all of these are going to be case by case. It's just simply story reasons that they're going to complete it, like they're building a future ally or they're completing one step in their larger backstory character arc. I leave all of that completely up to you and your table. However, if there is a mechanical effect, it does not work as an incentive to talk them into doing this personal quest if you don't tell them what that is in advance. So communicate with your players any rewards that they can receive if they choose to complete their personal quest. Now, one area concerning secret agendas and personal quests that needs special consideration is betrayals, where the player character's task requires them screwing over the rest of the party, maybe robbing them or abandoning them to die or just murdering them outright. It's right behind us. Get to the door. Once I get through, I'm locking the door behind me. Oh, are you serious? Sorry guys, but a Weyland-Yutani rep promised to get my brother out of jail and set us up for life if I could bring him back a sample and leave no witnesses. So, nothing personal. Todd, you can hear the banging on the door behind you as you slip into the pilot's seat. Then the whine of the engines drowns out the screams of your old partners as you blast off into a new life. Using a betrayal as a personal quest or a secret agenda is pretty easy to come up with. It's kind of a low-hanging fruit, and it's what a lot of players out there expect whenever they hear that it's a game that's got personal agendas, is that they're always going to be about screwing each other over, and it's going to end up becoming character versus character. And, in situations where it's a one-shot game or it's a big campaign finale sort of like that, we have used them and they have been a whole lot of fun. However, outside of those scenarios where this is the last time that any of us are going to be ever playing these player characters again, and everybody around the table knows that this is the last game we're ever going to play these player characters in, I would recommend using extreme caution when using betrayals as your personal quest. They can generate some bad blood around the table if game masters are always secretly encouraging the player characters to be screwing each other over and then rewarding them when they are screwing each other over. And, character versus character conflicts, those can be fun, but not everybody enjoys those, and even less people enjoy them all the time. It's just kind of the regular mood of whatever their game is. A lot of people prefer their character kind of group to be united against the world instead of the player characters all secretly going at each other's throats all the time. So I don't advise using betrayals as a regular thing for your personal quests. Yeah, they can be extremely memorable, but only if used very sparingly and in the appropriate games with players who aren't going to take this personally and are going to really just kind of enjoy what it is. So I strongly recommend that you keep the vast majority of your personal quests as things that don't hurt or take away from the rest of the player characters, and save those betrayals for the special occasions. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews or how-tos, just hit that subscribe button. If you want to support Seth's channel, consider picking up some of his books and novels, available in print and audiobook, and who knows, maybe you'll even enjoy it. Till next time, amigos, y'all have a great day. The only part that actually upset me with Todd's betrayal back there is that my character was secretly a spy for LaSalle Bionational, so I'd stolen a bunch of data from those research labs, and I was just planning on killing everybody else in their freezer burst once we got out of there, but that jerk beat me to it.